Lucky you.
36 best
Tuned
holes in
into
golf.
Alternate Shots podcast,
Barney's Army.
where we talk about golf,
Sandy.
poker,
James Bond.
horse racing,
Double.
classic movies.
Zenyatta.
We have no script.
Down the stretch they
And
come.
we are glad you joined us.
Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn.
Billy, back up in the Northeast. Glad to be here, especially this week. How exciting is this week? We've got two big events. We got the majors in horse racing and the majors in golf. The Preakness, the second of the Triple Crown, and we have the PGA Championship with our friend Craig Harmon. He may even win it this week. That's up in Rochester, New York. What do you think?
Unbelievable week and unbelievable season beginning. The Kentucky Derby's over, and this might be the first time in my memory where the Preakness isn't featuring more horses from the Derby. The only horse in this race that ran in the Derby is the winner, Mage, who will be the favorite in this Preakness. I can't say the same for the PGA.
Why is it that only one has come over from, in your opinion, or from what you've read about this, they've come over from the Derby?
Well, in past years, for whatever reason, it was almost automatic. You know, you'd run in the Derby, you'd run in the Preakness, because it's every owner's, trainer's, and jockey's dream to win the Triple Crown. There's no exception to that. That's like winning the Grand Slam in golf. But it's a lot harder than it looks, and the spacing. There must be something new in the way they train and stuff like that, because these horses can't handle the grueling schedule, which is the Derby, then 2 weeks later the Preakness, then 3 weeks later the Belmont Stakes. So unless they figure they have a real shot, they don't take it. They don't run in all three anymore. So they'll run in the Derby, and I assume we'll see some of the Derby horses in the Belmont Stakes, but only Mage with his jockey Javier Castellano, who is a Hall of Fame trainer, and his Derby win seems to have ignited him. He's gone on quite a win streak elsewhere during this time. So these people have a very good shot at winning the second leg of the Triple Crown, especially since they're facing all newcomers to this particular circuit. The horses aren't all newcomers, but none of them ran in the Derby. So I don't believe any of them have faced him before.
I'm a real novice here, but I really remember 2 weeks before the Derby, we were trying to dope this out, and Forte was our clear choice. But the one thing that the data that we had on that, and horses, just like golf now, is data driven. These trainers are looking at data you know this, you've been doing on data, and you can see that in a racing form. I never thought of saying after Forte scratched in the Derby, well, the horse that almost came this close
He just nipped out,
the Derby was who? Mage.
Right.
I mean, you don't have to be doping out the race. I mean, I pointed that out, and I said, well, now he's probably the best guy because he came this close to beating the odds-on favorite.
Yeah. If you liked Forte, you should have liked Mage. It's kind of that simple. But this is an interesting race because it's not as my friend Watson says, it's not the same rodeo as the Kentucky Derby. You know, it's not so much a position, jockeying for position. There's not 20 horses running in this thing. There's only 8. So form will probably stand up more predictably than in a Derby, where even a great horse can get shut off and lose all chance at any point in that race. It's a mile and 3/16. I think the track is a mile and an eighth. So they probably start in the chute and then go once around the whole event. The Belmont, the track is a mile and a half. They do one circuit there. Yeah. But Pimlico has a kind of a funny history. The Preakness started there, then it was moved to New York. It started before the Kentucky Derby, but it didn't become itself until later, maybe 20 years later. I think 1909 is when it came there permanently. And the first run, it was 1890. And it was named the Preakness because when Pimlico opened in 1873, the first stakes horse race winner was named Preakness, and it hasn't had as consistent a history as the Derby or the Belmont, but since 1909 it's been run at Pimlico. I think maybe 7 times it was run as a handicap, which is different than a 3-year-old race. Now it's just 3-year-olds, all carrying the same weight and all running a mile and 3/16. And coming into this race, Mage, who will be the favorite, has probably the least foundation of that I can remember in history. He's only run 4 times, which means I don't know what it translates to on the track, but mostly the horses coming into this race have had more experience. So it'll be interesting to see if he's just going to keep getting better, which is extremely possible. And especially since his jockey seems to be on cloud 9, it's going to be hard to get past Mage. I'm going to try to, but it's going to be hard.
It's like Colin Morikawa winning the PGA out in Harding Park a couple of years ago. No one really had any information on him. He was a young professional, and he just took that tournament. And now we'll talk about the PGA at the end of this after we're talking here. But when you look at these 2 pictures here, the one on the left is the larger crowd picture. The one on the right is about the starting gate. You just saw the starting gate of the Preakness and the Kentucky Derby. They look similar. But what a difference, what a vast difference in the color and the beauty. And maybe we didn't catch the Preakness on its best day in this picture on the left, but it doesn't look anything like the Derby pictures.
Yeah, it's not as grandiose a place as Churchill Downs, and it's also not as historical a place. And I've been playing horses everywhere for a long time, and I don't usually play a lot of races at Pimlico, except for this week when the best trainers and best horses show up for this. The Black Eyed Susan is the filly race will be the day before. That's sort of like the Kentucky Oaks at Churchill. It'll be an interesting race, and this year Bob Baffert's back after being suspended for what they call doping a horse, but a horse tested positive for the Kentucky Derby Medina Spirit and was months later, after legal battles, disqualified from that race for testing positive, and has since died after a workout at Santa Anita. So there is some chaos going on in horse racing right now, and it's very concerning what's going on.
Right.
And there's a new agency that's supposed to nationalize the rules and punishments for drugs, what's allowed, what's not allowed, because it's very inconsistent going into this. And racing needs that, because in my opinion, horse racing is one of the greatest sports in the world. But for people who don't know it or who are not interested in it, are usually very suspicious of whether there's cheating or collusion or anything like that going on. So the perception of that is just as bad as if it were a reality, even if it's not true. So I think it's important that there's an impartial committee that doesn't have any owners or trainers or jockeys on it at all to look at this sport, much the same as the PGA looks at their tour. You can talk about the beauty and the aesthetics all you want, and if no one bets, the game's over. There needs to be an advocate for the people who play the races and for the horses who run the races. The fans love it when it's right. And as I've said before, there's no elation like winning a horse race. It's inexplicable. It's not even the money. You might only win $3.20 for $2, but you can bet the guy with the $2 win bet on the horse is cheering as loud as the guy with the $200 win bet as they come down the stretch.
You're going to pick a long shot and you get one long shot for $2 or $10. Tell me which one you're going to pick and why.
In this race?
Yep.
I'm going with Perform. My buddy Shug McGahee's horse. This horse has run 7 times. He's only won twice, but the 2 wins are his last 2 races, and both of them came when they stretched him out. First from 7 furlongs to 1 mile and 40 yards, and then his last race was 1 mile and 1/8, which is a 16th shorter than this. And he came from 10 lengths back to win that race by a head. He looks like he likes the distance, and he's training very well. My money's going there. That's who I'm going to try and beat the favorite with. Although I will use the favorite in every exacta and superfecta.
A smaller race like this, like the Kentucky Derby had 20 horses, right?
Yep.
This has got, right now, it looks like it's got 8. Is the trainer more important in a smaller field than a larger field, or vice versa?
It's racing luck is more important in a larger field. And the trainer's understanding of that is very important. So he can instruct the jockey as well as the jockey's understanding. about where to be, how he's trained the horse. Did I put some more speed in him? Because we need to get position early or whatever. Yeah. So in a larger field, the connections across the board become important, but racing luck is a huge part of that. And as we saw with the Japanese horse last week or 2 weeks ago, he never got out to the lead like he maybe should have. And I don't know if that was because they miscalculated or because he got a bad start. You never really know the inside story unless you can see it. But Mage got a great ride and ran down the speed. I don't know if they're going to be able to run down the speed in this race. And the speed in this race looks to be National Treasure, who's a Bob Baffert horse. Baffert had to turn him over to another trainer, Tim Yakteen, while he was suspended. But he's got him back now. And, suspending a trainer in that kind of condition, sort of like throwing the manager out of a baseball game. Have you really done anything, or is he sitting right in the alley there telling everybody what to do? Who knows? But he's officially the trainer now, and he's training like Baffert horses always train, bullet workouts. Baffert's won this race 8 times. No one else has ever done that. So he's hard to ignore. That's National Treasure. He's on the rail, and he's probably the fastest horse in the race as far as gate speed. And the race doesn't have a lot of other. Coffee with Chris can go early. Maybe First Mission, who's Brad Cox, another excellent trainer on the outside. But if no one runs with National Treasure, it's going to be hard to run him down. And he's got John Velasquez, who's always rides for Baffert, and he's a 32% win percentage with Baffert. So he's going to be tough to run down.
Nice.
Then you have Chase the Chaos.
I was going to ask you about Chase the Chaos. What's that horse doing in this race? When you only see 8 horses, the biggest is the 20-1, and then you got 50-1. That's like you and me playing in a PGA.
And he's never won on a dirt track. He's only won on synthetic and turf.
It's not happening.
He's not. I don't think it's happening. That would be, he's going to be 50-1.
All right. Final thoughts on the Preakness till now. Then we'll switch over to the PGA for a moment.
Okay, I'm going to take Perform because I'm rooting for Shug, and I think that Shug would not enter a horse unless he really thought it had a chance. And I'm looking at these workouts, which are great. I'm going to add Red Route 1, a Steve Asmussen horse who is a huge stretch runner. If the race falls apart, he's going to be coming in the end. So he'll be in my exactas and superfectas. I'm going to use Mage, and I'm going to use National Treasure, even though I don't like the concept of National Treasure, but I'll put him in. So I'm going to box a superfecta. National Treasure, Mage, Red Route 1, and Perform. And I'm probably not going to be the only one that does that.
Right.
But I'm leaning on Perform. That's where my win bet's going.
You're not going to see 20,000 superfecta, $20,000 payouts.
No, this is going to be a much more
$2,000 or $3,000 payout, though.
If you're lucky. Might not even be that. It might only be hundreds for the superfecta because there's only 8 horses. So if Mage wins, the super's not going to pay much at all because everybody will wheel Mage with other horses in the superfecta.
But if Red Route 1 wins, then you got something else.
That's why you box those superfectas in case if you're boxing a superfecta with Mage, you want him to come 4th of the 4 horses. That'll be the largest payout. Obviously.
You gave me an idea, just an off chance to take an exacta on 5-6 and exacta on 6-5, because that would be nice payouts if just those 2 came in 1-2, right?
Oh, I'm definitely getting that. That's a serious exacta for me for sure. I'm going to play the 5-6 box. I'm going to play the 6-3 box and the 5-3 box and the exactas, and then I'll play Sugar on top of those horses a little bit also.
All right, everybody, go set up your TVG accounts, go to your bank and send over 50 or 20 or $30 and have some fun. As Billy says, there's no elation in anything else except if you've hit your 4th roulette number or you've been holding the dice at the Desert Inn for 45 minutes or more, but it's pretty close. And this is in 2 minutes. So you don't have to wait so long for all you ADD people out there. 2 minutes is enough. You can watch a race, put $2 on it. And you can put $2, right, Billy, on an exacta. You could pick
absolutely. Yeah.
You could pick a 1 horse and a 2, whatever your first and second is, and put $2 up. So you can set up a TVG account and bet, or go to the track and bet.
Lots of places to bet. Just don't
But-
call me.
All right, Billy. This is part 2 of this episode. We are going to call it Doping Out the PGA Championship, which is being held in upstate New York in May. It's going to be a little cold. I saw yesterday it might have been in the 30s in the morning. We heard about that from our friend Craig Harmon, who you see in the picture on the right. But have you had any thoughts about this championship? And I like to say, if you can't take Rahm or Scheffler, who do you like?
Yeah, I like the idea that it's an old Donald Ross course, so it's going to be probably some positions going to be important, not like an overpower the course situation. If I can't take Rahm or Scheffler, I got to lean towards maybe Tony Finau. I like Patrick Cantley a little bit. Cameron Smith, I bombed out on in the Masters. I might take a shot with him again because I truly believe that guy is a great golfer. I hope he hasn't lost his edge playing on the the Nickelback tour over there. But I don't know, man. This is going to be a tough horse race.
Finau and Cantley, it's just like a horse that's never won a race before. Neither of them have won a major, and that takes them into a different stratosphere, right?
Yeah, but they're both very capable.
Ricky Fowler has not won a major. He's won the Players Championship, and a lot of times guys win that in advance of winning. Like Sergio won the Players Championship, I believe, and after that he won the Masters. So it helps them get to that laddering up. But this is a huge ladder. They're definitely on the ladder. These two guys, Finau and Cantley, are the top 10, 15 golfers right now. But what would it mean to them?
Everything. Your first major. Like for me, it'd be like a hole in one or something like that. I know I've never had dreams of winning a major, but you do have dreams of breaking 70 or making a hole in one. I don't know. These guys, again, it's like the horse racing. This is their PGA tournament is like their Kentucky Derby or their Preakness Stakes. Everybody wants this on their resume. And I think Finau's playing well enough, and he's such a nice man. It's hard not to root for him. I will, of course, be rooting for Ricky Fowler as always.
Yeah, his form is very good. And we heard from Craig Harmon that's very important, that golfers have a 3-week run, right?
Yeah.
Like we
They
do.
streak.
They have a streak. And you look at
I have a 3-hole streak sometimes.
Well, that's okay. That means you're going to triple bogey the 4th hole because your streak's over.
It's over.
In the case of form here, you have to think of a couple of guys. Dustin Johnson just won on Sunday in the the Billy Bob Thornton Tour, and Adam Scott played very well. Did not win, but he's playing very well. And Jason Day got it over the line this weekend and held back some guys that were shooting lights out. And the guy was, I can't believe how far Jason Day's hitting. And I thought he was going to be in the 290, 300 range because he's had back problems. His weight goes up, his weight goes down. The guy was bombing at 330, 340.
Yeah, he seems to be and he, I always wondered what happened to him. I guess he had some health issues. He had that vertigo and stuff like that. But he was like knocking on the door a few years back, which means if he's found it, he's going to be very dangerous this week too.
I heard something that Randall Shamley said on the PGA live at the PGA this week. Very interesting. Jason Day was taught to keep his lower body quiet. And if you go back and you look at the Ben Hogan, everything he says, it's all about the lower body, the lower body. That's how a smaller guy, could just jettison, and he was pretty long. But Jason Day, his instructors have held his lower body. In other words, you look at these guys, they get way back. He's not moving those hips from his hips down. And just like the same thing we heard about Michelle Wie, they ruined her by that. She had a beautiful swing and they restricted her lower body. And you also get more injuries. She got injuries and so did Day.
That's why the Harmons are so great at what they do. The ball likes your swing.
That's it. And I think Craig said, look, Koepka came. I thought Koepka was going to win the Masters. And he just didn't. He had a 74, I think, the final round. If he shoots 70 around there, he wins.
Was that because he's used to playing 54 holes, or was that just a coincidence?
There's a few form factors there. One, he got the preferred time. I don't remember if it's early and late or whatever. He got the better weather of the first 2 rounds. If you remember that first two,
All right. Yeah.
they had some weather problems. It doesn't look like Thursday and Friday in Rochester, it's going to be rained out, but it's going to be cold. Or as I say, it's a mecca for major championships in brisk weather.
Yeah. Maybe a frost delay.
Well, I don't think it's going to be frosty because it's going to get up in the 70s and 80s, and then it may rain Saturday. What about guys like you've seen on the leaderboard, Max Homa or Fleetwood? Gosh, Fleetwood, is it time for him to win a tournament?
I can't bet him. He's always good. He's like Jim Furyk. He's always around, and he's got a great career, and he makes a nice amount of money. Who wouldn't trade places with him for that? But he doesn't seem to be able to crack the big one.
You'd think if we were enthusiastic about these guys, we'd have brought them up front. McIlroy, Justin Thomas, Matthew Fitzpatrick, and Cameron Young. If you gave me those four, I would say I'll take him, and one of those guys is going to win the PGA. If you just give me four, it's not good odds, but I would think one of them's going to win out of that four.
But how competitive has this tour gotten when you can name 4 or 5 guys like that, and they're not the favorites? If you look at this list, I mean, John Rahm obviously is the favorite, and Scheffler, but otherwise, they're almost writing some of these guys off. You're getting plus $2,000 on Cantlay and 2,200 on Finau, 2,500 on Justin Johnson, 2,500 on Jason Day. That's a bet, I think.
For $100, you could make 7,000. Now he's only 42, but he's hitting the ball really crispy, and his putting is good. I don't know what his putting is going to do there, but he played in a 2013 PGA Championship, as we heard from Craig, because Craig had him in the pro shop looking at the Masters jacket, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's got some familiarity.
Look at Sam Burns is plus 4,000.
Yeah. So many of these guys on this list have never played there before this week,
which can be a detriment, but sometimes that might be a help. Obviously course knowledge is a good thing to have, but it could also make you worry about stuff you didn't need to worry about. So,
well, what Adam Scott's knowledge is in 2013 means nothing, because the whole course was redone by the restoration expert 3 or 4 or 5 years ago, as you're hearing on PGA live at the PGA. And we heard from Craig, they've just changed especially the 5th hole there, the 6th hole, and the 15th hole. There's some beautiful par 3s there. I can't wait to see the action on those par 3s.
Yeah.
I'm
very much looking forward to it. I'm not a golf bettor the same way as horses, but my guess would be if you like someone to win, say Cameron Smith at plus 3,000 or Spieth at plus 3,500, you should also probably hedge that bet by, top 5 or top 10 bet with it. So you bet him to win and to finish in the top 10.
In craps, there's a don't pass line bet, right? Would you
Yes, there is. It's not a very popular one for the people playing craps.
Would you ever do the don't pass or don't win bet on the 2 guys at the top, Rahm and Scheffler? Because I think those 2 guys aren't going to win this week. I just think, as you said earlier, there's so much competition. Somebody's going to get a few breaks. Somebody's going to get the better draw, and somebody's going to outputt these guys just a little bit. And we already talked about 12 or 15 guys that could do that.
And they both can't win. So if you bet them both not to win,
one of them's not going to win.
One of them's not going to win. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this has been fun. I can't wait for it, because I think as you look at the pictures that we showed on our Craig Harmon podcast, episode 55, the one just prior to this, and if you haven't seen it, you should look at it, because Craig is off the charts. The pictures there and the scenery is just beautiful.
Yeah. And his insights are also good. He's got some good stories about Ricky Fowler and some others. So, yeah, that was very, very, we were lucky to get a guy like that. We've been lucky to get his brother, Billy. And Butch, if you're listening, the door's open.
Thanks for joining us today.
Billy Harmon.
We really appreciate your
Double
feedback.
Indemnity.
And please subscribe to the show. And hit the bell icon so you get notified.
Movie classics.
New episodes.
Mark Gable.
Hit them hard and hit them off.
Best 36 holes.